I am still really positive and optimistic about the boycott because it's brought the community together so well. The community, I'm talking globally. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, Cynicalex. And today I want to talk about the boycott that we're going through in Marvel Future Fight. And I want to talk to you guys about some really great ideas that I've seen in the community, some, questions I've had thrown around a lot, and some sort of worries that people have about the boycott. And then I want to give you guys some finishing and final thoughts. However, I do want to start off by saying I'm not going to be making these types of videos every single day. I want to try and space them out because I know they're not a fun topic. I know a lot of you guys are watching the channel to try to unwind and try to get away from your troubles or your sort of stresses. And so I don't want to give you more stress by making every single day. Let's hammer home the point about the boycott. If you want daily or, double a day, twice a day, updates on the boycott, I'm doing that on Twitter via different tweets about the boycott and screenshots and stuff like that. Also, so you guys know, I've spent a lot of money on this game. Absolutely, I've got 1.2 million crystals recharged, but it won't move. That's not going to move at all whatsoever until the boycott is successful. And so yeah, that's basically the first part in the first place that I want to start off with. How is the boycott going to be successful? Well, I've said this before in the sense that the boycott means different things to different people, but for me, and in my opinion and my expectations, the boycott is going to be successful when we get meaningful changes to the existing systems that allow everyone to participate in them without throwing hundreds, thousands of dollars. Yes, for example, yes, when they introduced the CTPs, right? They were expensive. If you wanted to have all your characters with CTPs when they were first introduced, you did have to spend thousands of dollars. But you didn't have to spend thousands of dollars because you could get free CTPs from the legendary battles, right? They gave everyone a free CTP of energy, etc. And you could also still compete with obelisks. Could you compete at the very highest level? No, but it wasn't that large of a gap, and you can always farm crystals and you can always spend them doing that, right? There's just no way to compare the systems then versus the systems now, right? You can't compete when it's actually asking you for 2 CTPs, which is literally double, and that's just the baseline for reforging. For the comic cards, they're asking you for crystals and other premium cards if you want to reroll stats. It's just a whole big mess. So that's really the issue here, is that yes, there's a system in place, and you can argue that you could just ignore the system, but that's not the goal here, right? The goal is, if they want to introduce new systems, if they want to balance the game, if they want to balance Null World Boss around these new systems and future content around you having these CTPs, you having these new comic cards, these new, colored starred comic cards, then it needs to be accessible to everyone. In my opinion, in order for it to be accessible to everyone, they need to completely remove the premium cost of these systems. The developers, the marketing team completely underestimates how many CTPs most players have. Sure, the 1% of whales have multiple CTPs. I've got hundreds of CTPs, but we're not the player base that you're supposed to be, balancing the game for. You don't balance the game. You don't create new systems for the 1%. That's insanity. You create systems for the majority of players that the majority of players can compete in, and then you build some part of the system to have some advantage for super whales, right? But you never do the whole thing based on just super whales. So they have to, in my opinion, in order for the boycott to be successful, they have to get rid of the CTP cost for reforging. They have to get rid of the premium card cost for re-rolling the crafted stats, because that's still there. And they need to remove the crystal cost for re-rolling premium card crafted stats, because it costs crystals right now if you want to re-roll the stats on top of costing a premium card. So that's crazy. But that's not all, right? That's not the only thing that the boycott needs to do, because at this point, with a boycott, you have, essentially enraged the player base. You've essentially lost the player base's goodwill and trust, and you've essentially, tricked us and made us feel bad and, made us feel wronged and ripped off. So you have to go further than that. You can't just meet the minimum expectations anymore for the boycott. So you have to go a little bit further than that. Last time we had a boycott 3 years ago with the Ultimates update, they tried to give us crystals to bribe us. They did all these kinds of things. Not really interested in that whatsoever. What I think they need to do is long-term changes to crystal farming and card farming, because those are the two most important resources. Those are the two most valuable resources in the game. Crystals are the most valuable resource in the game, obviously, and we've been begging for more daily crystals. I think they need to increase the daily crystals, honestly, to 100 per day. That's my goal, is to get them to increase the daily crystals to 100 per day. Now, how they do that, I don't really care, right? Whether it's just increasing the daily crystals to 100, or whether it's increasing the daily crystals to, say, 50, and then doing the math and increasing the weekly crystals, but they have to increase. You know, my goal is to get them to increase the daily crystals to 100. That is a level that is competitive and that, you know, matches the cost. Because I don't know if you guys have seen some of the leaks and some of the data mines, but they're bringing all of the Danger Room characters back, for example. They're bringing all the Danger Room characters back. We've got 4 deluxe packs in 4 epic quests. There's just so many things to spend money on and to spend crystals on in this game. And it's bananas, right? That we still can only farm 25 crystals a day. It's absolutely ridiculous. So they have to increase the number of daily crystals. And then last but not least, they have to increase the amount of card farming. They did that in a very small way by taking out the 1 and 2 star cards from the CTP, from the comic card gambling. But that's only if you're spending crystals, guys. That's only benefiting the top 1% of players. So why don't you just just delete 1 and 2 star cards altogether from the game? Just get rid of them. So now, from now on, when you go into dimension missions and you farm, you're only getting 3, 4, 5, and 6 star cards. When you open the rift tokens, you're only getting 3, 4, 5, and 6 star cards. Everywhere in the game where they can drop cards, you're only going to be getting 3, 4, 5, and 6 star cards. We need more card farming. We don't just you can give us card farming by getting rid of cards, getting rid of 1 and 2 star cards, or you can give us more card farming by just giving us more card farming, right? Dropping cards in game modes that don't have very good rewards, for example, right? You can just choose a game mode and throw cards in there. It doesn't really matter. You can get comic cards from Alliance Conquest. You can get comic cards from, you know, whatever world event. I don't really care, right? GBR, but we need more comic cards because re-rolling is such a pain in the ass. So that's really the first goal of the boycott, is to get them to remove the parts of the system that make it inaccessible for the majority of the player base, and then to compensate the players in a way that's going to have a lasting net positive effect, right? Again, the game's not supposed to be a chore, right? So anybody who's defending this, or anybody who thinks that I'm being greedy, or I'm trying to, you know, I'm trying to take Netmarble for a ride here, the game is not supposed to be a chore, guys. The game is supposed to be fun. The game is not fun when it takes you a week to farm a premium mythic card, and then you re-roll it and it gives you garbage stats, and you're like, well, I guess I'll try again next week. Like, there's nothing fun about that, right? That's just torture. It shouldn't be that way, right? You should be getting enough mythic comic cards coming in, or enough comic cards that you can combine to mythic cards, so that you feel that you're constantly given chances to re-roll those other cards, right? It's just crazy to me that that's not, you know, that they haven't done that already in 5.5 years. So anyways, that's sort of the goals of the boycott, and that's sort of the moment where I will know that the boycott's been successful. Now, this question I get a lot: what are we doing with the boycott? What's the plan? What's the next step? I think a lot of players need sort of a progression system, and they need to know, you know, this is phase 1, this is phase 2, this is phase 3. So unfortunately, I don't have a better answer for you, because the most successful boycotts don't actually have a very complex, multi-layered plan. The best thing you can do in a boycott for a mobile game, because money talks, is to not spend money, not spend real money. Does that mean you're not spending your crystals? No, it doesn't, because spending crystals is probably something that they track, but it's not nearly as important as money, real money spent. That is their number one, you know, their number one piece of data that they're looking at. How many players are spending and how much are they spending in real money. So not spending real money is the #1 key thing. The #2 thing, because I keep saying it, but honestly I haven't seen that many, is leaving a 1-star review on the App Store or the Play Store. I know it's a pain in the butt to go and open up the App Store or the Play Store and find Marvel Future Fight and then write a review. I know it's a pain in the butt. It takes like 5 minutes or whatever, but it is really important. Some countries have already dropped the review score under 4 stars. Under 4 stars is a really big deal for mobile game companies. All the developers and all the executives that I've talked to that work in mobile games have all said that, because under 4 stars the game doesn't get recommended as much, and there's even search filters for above 4 stars. So if your game is under 4 stars or at 4 stars, it's not going to necessarily pass that filter. Not passing the filter, not being recommended as much, means that the game is not going to be found by as many new users. Every new user, every new download of the game is potentially someone who will spend money. So mobile games, always want new spenders. The #1 thing that a mobile game wants as a business is they want the in-game players, the players who are already playing their game, to spend. Of course, you want your current users to spend money. The second most important thing they want is to convert new players or free-to-play players into spending players, right? Again, it's sort of connection to #1. The #3 thing they want is they want to generate more new players. But that's basically your 3 categories. You have your spending players, you want them to continue spending and spend more. You have your free-to-play players that you want to convert into spending players, and then you have potentially new players that will join the game as either free-to-play or spending players, and then you can either convert them or not depending on whether they spend money, right? So if you cut off one of those 3 groups, if you delete the first group because you stop spending, you're a player, you stop spending, you move into the free-to-play category, and then we rate the game, and so it stops new players from coming in, that's a huge blow to them, and that really grabs their attention. Beyond that, beyond leaving a 1-star review and beyond not spending money, there's really not much else we can do. Sure, we can message them on social media. Sure, we can, post on the forums and Facebook and Reddit. I'm not saying those things don't help. I'm not saying those things don't help at all. They do help, but I'm not going to ask everyone to do it, and I don't expect everyone to do it. And the amount of effect that it has, which is what would sort of, encourage me to ask people to do it, is just not as high, right? Because they can filter those things out. A lot of the devs maybe don't speak English very well, or it's not their first language. They're not checking social media. They're working on the game. They're spending time with their families or whatever. They have a social media team specifically for that, and their social media team will maybe aggregate the opinions and the beliefs and the sort of the feelings of the community and send reports. But again, the development team, the marketing team, they can ignore those reports. They can cherry pick what they want out of those reports to send to their bosses. It's not necessarily something that is under our control, or it's not necessarily something that we can even guarantee is going to make it into the hands of the right people that can make changes for the game. But there's nothing that they can do when they get a report and they see, wow, player spending is down 30%. What's going on? We just had a new update. We just introduced these 2 new systems. You said that these 2 new systems would make us money, but we're making 30% less than last month. Last month we didn't introduce a new system. We just had the Damnation update. What's going on? And then they're going to start asking questions, right? Or they're going to get another report. Why did the game's score drop from 4.5 to 4.1 in US and Canada? What's going on? Why are we getting so many negative reviews? Oh, they're upset about the new system? Okay, let's talk about it. See? These kinds of things get people talking. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is players that are not following the boycott. To me, this doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter because there's really no benefit to talking about these players or outing these players, exposing these players. Not everyone agrees with the boycott, or not everyone feels the same way about the boycott for whatever reason, and that's their choice, right? Everyone's allowed to have an opinion. Everyone's allowed to do things the way that they want to do things. I'm not going to force you to be in the boycott. If you want to spend money in Marvel Future Fight, that's your money. You worked hard for it. That's really all there is to it. But trying to blame those players for why the boycott is not successful is wrong, because the boycott is not going to fail because a few players spent money. Now, of course, if everyone spent money, then obviously there's no boycott, but that's a different story, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a few players here and there that you're seeing, you know, in the game or whatever, screenshots that aren't following the boycott. That's a small amount of players. You have to just try to ignore it. That's the best thing I can say, because ultimately the players are not to blame, right? The players didn't create the system. The players didn't design the system. But keep in mind, guys, the players that are using the system, they're still spending money. So whatever they're getting out of it, they're putting in thousands of dollars of their own money. So they're not really winning in that sense. You see what I'm saying? Because on the one hand, players in the community, other players in the community are looking down on them and giving them like the side eye. And then on top of that, they're still giving Netmarble, you know, thousands of dollars. It's kind of a lose-lose in a way. So whatever benefit they're getting in the game, I don't think it's worth it personally. But again, focus your energy on the real problem. The real problem is the systems and the people who designed the systems, the marketing team for Marvel Future Fight, right? It's not the players that are spending money that designed the system. It's really not their fault, right? The other question I get a lot is, how long is this going to last? How long is the boycott going to last for? Is the boycott failing? They're not listening to us. You know, the boycott's not having an effect. We need to do more. This is the other thing. This is the other piece of sort of bad news that I have for you. Boycotts don't work in a day. Boycotts don't work in a week. It took us almost a month to get the Netmarble developers to listen when we had the last boycott. It took almost a month. I made so many boycott videos in a month. It was crazy. I think it took them almost a week or more than a week to respond to the boycott for the very first time. But they responded because we did not give up. It was so intense for them. You know, it took them a week of seeing their profits drop. Then they were like, okay, we can't handle this anymore. We need to negotiate with the players. This is too much. That's what we need to achieve. That's the goal. That's the effect that we need to have. But that effect is not going to happen in 1 day or 2 days. Because think about it, from a business perspective, if you open a restaurant or if you have a restaurant and you have fewer people coming in for 1 day, you're not going to panic. 2 days, you're not going to panic. 3 days, you may start to wonder, but you're not going to panic after 3 days of having less customers. But if you have less customers for a week straight after 5 years, that's not a coincidence anymore, right? So there is sort of a logic to it that we have to accept and that we have to hold on to, right? If we hold on for long enough, I promise you, they will respond to the boycott directly. They will communicate with us, and then they will negotiate with us. But we have to, you know, we have to stick to our guns, not spending real money in the game and leaving those 1-star reviews. That is what's going to succeed, and that's what's going to get their attention first and foremost. Beyond that, anything else you want to do for the boycott is obviously up to you. That's your own personal boycott. If you want to stop playing, if you want to post on social media, if you want to not spend your crystals, that's 100% totally up to you. But again, I never ask people to do things that I wouldn't do or that I'm not doing. So for that reason, I don't talk about it as something that I want you to do or that I ask you to do. But there also are people who are designing basically other systems that Netmarble could use in place of the current system. So I want to highlight one in particular. This is by Dr. Akihiko Kayaba. Sorry for butchering your name. But this guy and his alliance mate Gary Ketchup, who I do recognize from my Twitch streams, came up with 2 mock-up ideas of what the development team could have done, okay, what the Marvel Future Fight team could have done with this CTP system, specifically the CTP system, not the card system, because the card system is honestly not that bad cost-wise if, and it's a big if there's no premium card cost. But the problem is that right now there is a premium card cost. So let's check out this first system. This first system, instead of using CTPs to reforge, it uses specific extreme obelisks, specific 6-star obelisks. So this is a really good idea. When you go to your 6-star obelisks, you will see that they can have different icons on them. So I've got these ones locked here. This one is locked because guard break is the first stat. These ones are also locked because guard break is the first stat. And then this one is locked because it's got a damage proc, but no guard break. See that little sword icon. So that's the exact idea that Gary Ketchup and Kayaba had. So they're basically saying, why not have us reforge by providing one extreme obelisk of each type? So you have to provide an extreme obelisk with invincibility, guard break immunity, and damage proc. This way, this is a really good idea, because this way it's, you know, it's reinforcing the existing systems, and it's requiring players to input a certain number of mythic obelisks, which can still be expensive, but it's accessible to the player base, right? This is accessible to the player base. This is not something that's built for the top 1% of players. This is something that everyone can do. You still need to farm these from null, by the way. This is not a cheap system. You still need to farm this from null world boss, which means you still need to build up Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Apocalypse. You still need to invest, right? Hundreds of millions of gold. This is what the developers don't understand, right? Just to do this, you're like, oh wow, this is so cheap, Alex. No, this is not cheap, guys. You still need to farm these from null, and the only way to get null is to do, you spend crystals, right? How many crystals? Okay, hang on. I did Call Obsidian, and I did Thanos. How many crystals? Oh, it's only 5,000 crystals, guys. That's only equivalent to $50. No worries. Or 2 months of a Stark stash. Anywho, right? Look at that. Scarlet Witch, Apocalypse, Cable, and Quicksilver. So if you don't want to pay the crystals, you have to build up these 4 characters. They cost easily, right? 60, 70, 80 million gold a piece. So you're talking hundreds of millions of gold on top of the weeks that it takes to complete those individual challenges, because you have to complete challenges for each one of these bosses to unlock them, just to get null, just to unlock him, just to start farming this. So it's not a cheap system, even if you take the CTPs out, right? Okay, so this is a really good idea for Gary Ketchup and Kayaba. So what other ideas do they have? I'm not going to go into too hard. I'm not going to go into like the nitty-gritty details, because they have all these other breakdowns, but I just really like their visual examples. I really enjoy that. System number 2, let's check it out. So this is another idea that they had. This would be color-coded, and each color would refer to a different mythic obelisk, an extreme obelisk, a 6-star obelisk with different elemental damage typing. So it could be so the red one would be a fire damage extreme obelisk. The green one would be recovery rate. The blue one would be cold damage. Yellow would be max HP. I guess yellow would probably be better off as lightning damage, but anyways, pink, if they had a pink color, could be mind damage. So you could ask for one of each of all these different options, where the main stat, the very first stat, counts for all of these. And again, you still need the null world boss legend reforging material, right? So this is a really good idea. There's a lot of really good ideas in the community. There's a lot of really smart players in the community. It's up to us to try and amplify their voices, and also to get Marvel Future Fight's attention by boycotting this garbage system, so that they can replace it with something that's better. Okay, so that's all the updates I have for you guys on the boycott. Sorry that it's not a more positive video, but honestly, I am still really positive and optimistic about the boycott, because it's brought the community together so well. The community, I'm talking globally. I'm getting messages from players all around the globe. I'm seeing people from all around the globe talking to each other. We're all unified in this one goal of making the game better, making the game more fair and more accessible to all players, regardless of whether you have a gigantically thick wallet or not. And you know, really showing the devs, this is what we want in the game and this is what we don't want in the game. And by and large, right, the majority of the time, the players are completely unified in both of those opinions and those expectations. So it's awesome. For me, that's a really big positive, that we're united and that we're so organized in our togetherness for the boycott. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Non-boycott video coming up next later today. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.